In the year 2035, the Ares 3 crew, stationed on Mars for an exploratory mission, reaches Sol 18 of their 31 Sol planned stay. As they continue their scientific work on the Martian surface, a severe and unexpected dust storm begins to approach, quickly escalating in intensity. With the mission and their safety now at high risk, the crew faces mounting pressure as winds reach dangerously high speeds. Recognizing the threat to both their equipment and their lives, Commander Melissa Lewis reluctantly orders an emergency evacuation, directing her team to abandon the mission and return to their orbiting vessel, the Hermes. The crew scrambles toward the Mars Ascent Vehicle, MAV, battling against blinding waves of dust and relentless gusts. During the chaotic retreat, astronaut Mark Watney is suddenly struck by flying debris, thrown off his path, and lost in the swirling storm. Watney's suit telemetry signals a critical failure. His suit has lost pressure, and life sign indicators go silent. The MAV begins to sway precariously under the storm's force, and the crew's chance of a safe launch dwindles by the second. With their own lives in grave danger and the risk of the MAV toppling imminent, Commander Lewis faces a heartbreaking choice. Knowing they cannot delay any longer, she makes the agonizing decision to proceed with the launch, leaving Mars and, seemingly, Watney behind. As the MAV takes off, lifting the crew to the relative safety of the Hermes, a somber silence fills the cabin. The team is aware of the sacrifice they've had to make, each member coping with the painful reality that they have left a fellow astronaut behind. As the dust storm clears, astronaut Mark Watney slowly regains consciousness, his head pounding and his vision hazy. A relentless beeping fills his helmet. It's a low oxygen warning, signaling that his suit's supply is dangerously depleted. Disoriented and in pain, Watney realizes he's sustained injuries, yet he's alive against all odds. Inside the hab, Watney assesses his condition, noticing a sharp, searing pain in his abdomen. He discovers that a piece of antenna from the storm has punctured his suit and lodged itself in his belly, damaging his biomonitor and rendering it inactive, explaining why his crew had assumed he was dead. He realizes that the antenna, combined with his coagulated blood, created a makeshift seal that stopped his suit from depressurizing and saved his life. With grim determination, he carefully removes the antenna, stabilizes himself, and prepares for the monumental challenge ahead. Once stabilized, Watney evaluates his supplies and grimly concludes that his survival depends on the next scheduled Mars mission, Ares 4, which won't arrive for another 4 years. With the limited food supply meant to last only 300 sols, he faces an impending food shortage. Refusing to surrender to hopelessness, he hatches a plan to cultivate food within the hab. Despite Mars's hostile environment, using whole potatoes originally brought for a Thanksgiving meal, he devises a farm, enriching the Martian soil with bacteria-rich fertilizer derived from his and his crew's stored waste. For water, he ingeniously extracts hydrogen from leftover rocket fuel and oxidizes it through controlled burns, producing a sustainable water source to irrigate his makeshift farm. Determined to stay sane and focused, Watney keeps a series of video logs, treating the camera as his sole companion, humorously narrating his experiences to maintain morale. Knowing he'll need to travel to the Schiaparelli crater, 3,200 kilometers away from his current location, where the Ares 4 mission is set to land, Watney begins experimenting with the one functional rover. Originally designed for 35-kilometer trips before needing a recharge, the rover isn't equipped for such long journeys. Watney uses his engineering skills to develop configurations that would extend its battery life and range. As part of routine satellite imaging, NASA's Mars mission director, Vincent Kapoor, reviews recent photos of the Martian surface. Alongside satellite planner, Mindy Park, he studies the latest images taken near the Ares 3 site. Suddenly, something catches their attention. Subtle, but unmistakable signs of human activity. Equipment that should have remained untouched since the Ares 3 crew's departure appears to have been moved. Kapoor and Park exchange stunned glances, slowly realizing that Mark Watney might still be alive. They immediately escalate the findings, and within hours, a team is assembled to confirm their suspicions. Satellite images are analyzed in detail, revealing clear evidence that Watney has managed to survive. Kapoor, thrilled yet cautious, initiates plans to re-establish contact with him. However, as he and the team lay out options for communication, NASA Director Teddy Sanders faces a difficult decision. Hermes Flight Director Mitch Henderson argues passionately that the Ares III crew should be informed that their teammate is alive, but Sanders, fearing that such news could distract the Hermes crew from their journey back to Earth and add considerable stress, decides to keep Watney's survival a secret from them. For now, back on Mars, Watney realizes his isolation extends beyond the planet itself. He's entirely cut off from Earth as well. Determined to find a way to communicate, he recalls the Pathfinder probe, which had transmitted from Mars until 1997 before going silent. Using his modified rover, he embarks on a daring medium-range journey to locate Pathfinder, hoping to repurpose it as a communication link. After a treacherous trip, Watney reaches Pathfinder and carefully brings it back to the hab. Once there, he works tirelessly to repair and adapt the probe's systems, finally activating the lander's rotating still camera. When the JPL team sees Watney's signal, they devise a method of rudimentary communication, using basic yes-no camera rotations to ask and answer questions. This breakthrough is celebrated at NASA, and soon they assist Watney in further upgrading the probe, enabling a system of typed text messaging. For the first time since being stranded, Watney can communicate with Earth, sharing updates, asking questions, and even injecting his signature humor, lifting spirits on both Mars and Earth as he reconnects with humanity. As Watney's farm begins to thrive, yielding a precious supply of potatoes to sustain him, Henderson and JPL director Bruce Eng work tirelessly to develop a plan to resupply him with enough food to last until the arrival of Ares IV. The plan is ambitious and demands every resource available, as they aim to launch an emergency space probe loaded with essentials to keep Watney alive over the coming years. With the probe's launch date approaching, the atmosphere at NASA grows cautiously hopeful. Director Teddy Sanders, buoyed by the team's optimism and the potential success of the resupply mission, finally authorizes a long-awaited update for the Ares III crew. In a recorded video message from Henderson, the Hermes crew learns that Watney is alive and fighting to survive on Mars. Shocked and emotional, the crew is relieved to know he's alive, but shaken by the gravity of his situation. However, as NASA prepares the probe for launch, they are faced with an impossible timeline to meet the critical launch window. Under immense pressure, Sanders makes the risky decision to bypass several rounds of safety inspections to ensure the probe launches on time. Tragically, this choice proves disastrous. Moments after liftoff, the probe explodes, the cargo destroyed in a fiery cascade as Sanders and the NASA team look on in stunned silence. The mission to resupply Watney has failed, and the remaining hope for a swift rescue slips through their fingers. Simultaneously, Watney faces his own crisis. As he goes about his daily tasks in the hab, the airlock suddenly suffers a catastrophic decompression, sending a shockwave through the structure. The force of the blast obliterates his precious potato crop, decimating the only sustainable food source he has managed to cultivate. Realizing the airlock failure has ruined his farm, Watney takes stock of his dwindling resources, his projected food supply now critically diminished. He's left to confront the harsh reality that he'll need to rely on NASA for survival, while those back on Earth scramble to formulate another plan. In the midst of NASA's scramble for solutions, an unexpected ally steps forward. The China National Space Administration, CNSA. Aware of the crisis surrounding Watney's survival, CNSA offers NASA a lifeline in the form of a classified booster powerful enough to carry a payload to Mars. It's a rare show of international solidarity, and NASA immediately seizes the opportunity, quickly preparing another supply mission, with every step accelerated to meet the dire timeline. Meanwhile, at JPL, astrodynamicist Rich Purnell devises an audacious plan, one that could rescue Watney more directly. He calculates a trajectory that would allow Hermes to loop back to Mars in a fraction of the time. His plan involves using the Chinese booster to resupply Hermes instead, enabling the crew to return to Mars with the necessary supplies for an additional year and a half in space. However, Purnell's plan poses significant risks, requiring the Hermes crew to extend their mission and delay their return to Earth by many months. With both plans requiring CNSA's booster, NASA Director Teddy Sanders is forced to make a choice. Opting for caution, Sanders decides to prioritize the direct supply mission to Mars, unwilling to risk the lives of the Hermes crew by extending their mission. His decision sparks an intense debate, particularly with Mitch Henderson, who believes that Purnell's plan offers the best chance to save Watney. Frustrated and unable to persuade Sanders, Henderson quietly takes matters into his own hands. He sends Purnell's calculations and details of the plan directly to the Hermes crew, allowing them to make the choice for themselves. Upon receiving the proposal, Commander Melissa Lewis and her crew gather to discuss the drastic course change. Though it would mean extending their mission by over a year and facing unknown challenges, each crew member votes unanimously in favor of returning for Watney. NASA, now powerless to intervene, reluctantly agrees to resupply Hermes as it makes a close approach to Earth. In a daring maneuver, Hermes uses Earth's gravitational pull to slingshot back toward Mars, initiating a high-stakes rescue mission that will push the crew and NASA's resources to their limits. The world watches as the Hermes crew commits to bringing their fellow astronaut home, no matter the personal cost. After surviving on Mars for 459 sols, Mark Watney faces his final and most daunting challenge. With the Ares 3 mission habitat behind him, he begins a 3,200-kilometer journey across the Martian landscape toward the Schiaparelli crater, where the Mars Ascent Vehicle, MAV, for the Ares 4 mission has been waiting. Watney carefully equips his rover with solar panels from the HAB to power the journey, rationing energy, food, and every resource with military precision as he navigates Mars's barren and treacherous terrain. Over the course of 90 sols, he fights through dust storms and isolation, documenting his experience in video logs that he hopes one day will reach Earth. Upon arriving at Schiaparelli, Watney faces the daunting task of modifying the MAV to make it light enough for a successful rendezvous with Hermes. Working from NASA's instructions, he systematically removes non-essential equipment, including seats, windows, and even exterior panels, reducing the MAV to a stripped-down shell, just barely capable of launching him into Mars's thin atmosphere. His survival hinges on his ability to rise from the planet at exactly the right time to intercept Hermes during its carefully timed flyby. On the day of the launch, Watney boards the gutted MAV. The Hermes crew remotely initiates the launch sequence, and the MAV takes off, fighting against Mars's gravity. But the launch doesn't go as planned. The MAV reaches orbit, but it falls short of the intended speed and distance, leaving Watney stranded in the vastness of space, still too far from his rescuers. Determined not to give up, the Hermes crew devises a daring solution. To close the gap, they activate the ship's maneuvering thrusters, pushing Hermes into a new trajectory. As they draw closer, they prepare for one last drastic measure: explosive decompression of Hermes's atmosphere to gain a final burst of speed. The crew braces as the controlled explosion sends them hurtling toward Watney. Commander Melissa Lewis, equipped with a manned maneuvering unit, MMU, exits Hermes and attempts to reach Watney, stretching her tether to its maximum length. Despite her efforts, the gap is still too wide. In a final act of desperation and ingenuity, Watney pierces a hole in his suit's glove, allowing air to escape and propel him forward like a miniature thruster. He hurtles through space, controlling his direction with careful adjustments until he finally reaches Lewis's outstretched hand. In a moment of profound relief and joy, Lewis pulls Watney to safety. The entire Hermes crew gathers around him, their emotions overwhelming as they embrace the man they'd left behind so many months ago. On Earth, millions who have been following the ordeal hold their breath, then erupt into cheers as the news of Watney's rescue spreads. Across the globe, people celebrate this unprecedented story of survival, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between astronauts. Upon returning to Earth, Watney begins a new life, dedicating himself to training future astronauts in survival skills and problem-solving, sharing the hard-won lessons he learned during his time on Mars. Years later, as the Ares 5 mission prepares to launch, Watney's story has become a testament to human ingenuity and the relentless drive to explore and survive the unknown.